So today I am continuing my last lecture on classical conditioning theory. So in last lecture I explained the experiment conducted by Pavlov on dogs, and here I am going to explain the experiment conducted by Watson and his colleague Raynaud in 1920, and he conducted this experiment on human being because he wanted to say that conditioning theory can also be applied on human being. But this was considered to be unethical because it did not meet up the standards outlined by American Psychological Association and the British Psychological Society. So let's see what happens in this experiment. This experiment is also named as Little Albert experiment, who was 9 months old when he was approached for this experiment by Watson. But when the experiment started, he was already 11 months old. And this experiment continued for 7 weeks. Okay, 7 hours in a day and 7 weeks in a row. So let's see what happens here in first stage. As we all know, there are 3 stages in conditioning theory. Okay, so first stage, what happens? Albert is given various stimulus. Okay, so here the stimulus are toys, rabbits and rats, and there are different kind of masks also, and he was very happy with that, and he just played because he was not scared of anything. So one of the favorite toy that he wanted to play with was rat. These rats were not toy, but they were real rats. So he was very happy to play with rats. He picked up this to play with, and this is unconditioned stimulus. These are natural, and his unconditioned response was to play. He was happy to play with rats. And in next stage, that is during conditioning, he was given rat, but also a conditioned stimulus was there. Okay, this unconditioned stimulus was paired up with conditioned stimulus. So here the conditioned stimulus was a loud noise, and this loud noise was produced by striking hammer against a steel bar behind his head. Okay, so when little Albert was given rat to play with, that time a hammer used to hit the steel bar behind his head, and it produced a loud noise, and that made little Albert scared. Okay, and little Albert started to cry because of fear, and this is conditioned response. And this activity continued 7 times a day and 7 weeks in a row. Every time little Albert played with rat, okay, the loud noise was produced by striking hammer against a steel bar behind his head. So what happened? The property of this loud noise, property of this conditioned stimulus was transferred to unconditioned stimulus, transferred to rat. Okay, and his response was conditioned to be afraid of the loud noise, not afraid of the rat, but afraid of the loud noise. So let's see in the last stage, after conditioning, what happens? This conditioned stimulus now is rat. The rat has become conditioned stimulus. Earlier rat was unconditioned stimulus. Now rat has become conditioned stimulus because the property of the loud noise has transferred to the rat, because the pairing, the association has been established now. And the conditioned response is fear. Now little Albert will be afraid of uh, at the sight of rat. Okay, so because earlier Albert was not conditioned, Albert was not meant to cry or fear at the sight of the rat, but now since the association has been already made and condition has been done, now little Albert will fear of the sight of the rat. Okay, so now let's see what happened. Let's recapitulate with the help of this picture. This is a conditioning theory which was done on a dog. Experiment was done on dog. This you already know, and here you can see that little Albert, who was given lots of toys. Okay, this is a mask he was not afraid of anything. Okay, and when the conditioning was taking place, stage 2 was taking place, you see that rat was paired up with the loud noise. Okay, and he cried, and later on, just at the sight of the rat, the baby, the infant, cried. So this is the second experiment which was conducted by Watson. Here he proved that human beings' behavior can also be conditioned. They can learn by conditioning, classical conditioning theory. So in my next video, I will explain some of the key principles of classical conditioning theory.